the new Lilo and Stitch live-action trailer. And, well, like I say, I'm intrigued already. I mean, Stitch eating a CD and causing a car to spin out, that's just classic Stitch right there.
Yeah.
But I am curious, what are your first impressions of like this whole live-action remake trend that's been going on, especially with the story as visually unique as Lilo and Stitch?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fascinating trend. I mean, there's this huge wave of nostalgia that's kind of driving the whole thing, but pulling off live action Lilo and Stitch, yeah, that presents some very unique challenges. I mean, the animation style in the original is just so distinct, so vibrant, right? Translating that into live action, I mean, that's one thing, but then, doing that while also staying true to the heart of the story, that's like walking a tightrope.
Yeah, you've hit on something I've been thinking about too. The article even mentions Ohana as like a core theme. And in the animated version, it was so much more than just a cute little catchphrase, right? It was about the deep bonds of family. It really resonated. Do you think a live-action version can actually capture that same, like, emotional depth?
Mm-hmm.
Especially, with the CGI Stitch?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, Ohana isn't just something you see. It's got to be about feeling that connection. And I mean, a CGI Stitch could work, sure, but it has to be more than just looking the part, right? You got to feel those same emotions, that same sense of, mischievous warmth. That's what made the animated Stitch so endearing.
For sure. And it's not just about Stitch either, is it? I mean, the article also highlights, some of his wilder antics from the trailer, like chugging a lava lamp.
Mm.
I mean, on one hand, that's hilarious. But I also kind of wonder if leaning too much on that slapstick humor might undermine maybe some of the more heartfelt aspects of the story. What do you think about that whole balancing act?
Yeah, I see what you mean. The original Lilo and Stitch had this perfect blend of humor and heart,
Mm-hmm.
It's a tricky balance to get right. Especially, I think, when you're dealing with CGI, sometimes those over-the-top antics can just feel forced or like out of place in live action. The filmmakers will have to be careful not to sacrifice the heart of the story just for like cheap laughs.
Totally agree. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. And the trailer also gave us some quick glimpses of the Hawaiian landscape, and I'm really hoping they'll actually capture the beauty and spirit of the islands. It was such an integral part of the original's charm.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the setting in Lilo and Stitch it's almost like another character, isn't it? It provides this whole backdrop for the story about finding your place, your family, your ohana. If the live action can like visually capture that same feeling of belonging, it could really enhance the emotional impact of the whole story.
It really seems like the visuals are going to be super crucial for this remake. I'm like picturing these sweeping shots of the Hawaiian coastline, the vibrancy of the coral reefs, and of course the challenge of bringing Stitch to life in a believable way. Do you think the current trend of really leaning into CGI, do you think that could end up being a double-edged sword for a film like this?
Yeah, it definitely has the potential to be both good and bad. I mean, on the one hand, CGI lets you create these incredible visuals, right? And it lets you bring these fantastical creatures, like Stitch, to life with like a crazy level of detail that we've never really seen before. But then, on the other hand, there's always that risk of it feeling too artificial, too polished, and if they lean too much on the CGI, they might actually lose some of that handcrafted charm that made the original animation so appealing.
You've raised a really good point. Yeah, it's all about finding that sweet spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Using the CGI to enhance the story, but not letting it take over. Thinking back to some of the other Disney live-action remakes, are there any that you feel have really struck that balance well? And what can the Lilo and Stitch team learn from them?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, there are definitely some remakes that have done a great job of blending CGI and live action together really effectively. Like, for example, The Jungle Book. I mean, that movie just did a phenomenal job of creating this believable jungle environment and bringing those animals to life with CGI. But it still kept a sense of realism and wonder. And then Cinderella, well, not perfect by any means, it did capture some of the magic and the whimsy of the original animation through visual effects. So yeah, the Lilo and Stitch team could definitely learn from those successes, especially when it comes to using CGI to enhance the emotional impact, rather than just using it as a spectacle. Yeah, it's a tall order for sure. Blending those technical elements with the emotional side of Lilo and Stitch. I mean, the original film had this beautiful, almost like a watercolor aesthetic. Do you think that's even possible to replicate in live action, or will they kind of have to come up with like a whole new visual language for this version?
That's a really interesting point. That hand-drawn style really gave Lilo and Stitch a unique warmth, a personality. It wasn't about making things look photorealistic or anything. It was more about capturing the emotion of a scene. I wonder if they'll try to kind of emulate that in the live action, or if they'll just go for more, a more polished modern look.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards the latter. It just seems like most of these live action remakes, they tend to favor that more realistic aesthetic, even when they're adapting something that was really stylized in animation. But hey, maybe that's an opportunity, right, for the Lilo and Stitch team to really do something different. I mean, imagine if they could capture that same hand-drawn feel, that sense of playful imperfection, but in a live-action setting. I mean, that would be really special.
Oh, that would be incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
It would really set it apart from the other remakes. And, speaking of things that set it apart, one thing that always stood out to me about the original Lilo and Stitch was the music.
Yeah.
It had this incredible blend of, like, Hawaiian melodies and those classic Elvis tunes. What do you think they'll do with the music in this live action version?
Well, the music was such a crucial part of the original, right? It really helped to establish the setting, create this unique atmosphere. I'm really hoping they'll keep some of those Elvis tracks, but I'm also curious if they'll introduce some new music, something that reflects the contemporary Hawaiian music scene, maybe.
Ooh, I love that idea. Yeah, it would be a great way to pay homage to the original, but also add like a fresh modern twist. And speaking of modern twists, one thing that always comes up with these remakes is the question of updating the story, for a contemporary audience. Do you think they'll make any big changes to the plot or the characters, or will they try to stick closely to the original?
I think they'll have to walk a really fine line there. There are definitely some aspects of the original story that might feel a little, dated or insensitive to modern audiences. So I wouldn't be surprised if they made a few adjustments here and there. But at the same time, they can't stray too far from the core themes, and the relationships that made Lilo and Stitch so beloved in the first place.
It's all about finding that balance again, right? Honoring the original, but also acknowledging that times have changed. It'll be interesting to see how they navigate all of that. And I'm also really curious to see how they approach the casting for this one. I mean, Lilo and Nani, they were such well-defined characters in the animation. It'll be a real challenge to find actors who can embody those same personalities.
Oh yeah, casting is absolutely crucial on a project like this. I mean, they need to find actors who can capture the spirit of those characters, but also bring their own, unique interpretations to the roles. It's a tricky thing to get right, but I'm confident they'll find the right people. And then, of course, there's the question of who's going to voice Stitch. I mean, Chris Sanders' original performance was so iconic. It's hard to even imagine anyone else voicing him.
It's going to be near impossible to replicate that exact voice, that energy. I wonder if they'll go for a sound alike, or maybe try to find a completely new voice. One that still captures that mischievous but vulnerable personality that Stitch has.
I think they need to find someone who can bring something new to the role, but still honor that spirit of the original performance. It's a delicate balance to strike, and thinking about Stitch's personality kind of brings up another important point about the remake in general. How do you think they're going to handle the humor? I mean, the original Lilo and Stitch had this perfect blend of like slapstick and heart. Will they be able to capture that same tone in live action?
That is a great question. Yeah, the humor in Lilo and Stitch was so specific, so quirky. It'll be interesting to see if they can translate that into a live action format without it feeling, forced or out of place. And I think the CGI adds another layer of complexity to that as well. Sometimes CGI characters can feel a little too polished or predictable in the way they move, and that might make it harder to really land those comedic beats.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There's a certain spontaneity to hand-drawn animation, right, that can be hard to replicate with CGI. The filmmakers are really going to have to be careful with how they animate Stitch. They need to make him feel, alive, expressive, not like some computer-generated puppet.
Yeah, it sounds like there are like a lot of potential pitfalls with this remake, but also a lot of exciting possibilities too. If they can find that right balance between honoring the original and bringing something new to the table. this could be a really special film. And I think one of the keys to success is going to be how they handle the cultural aspects of the story. The original Lilo and Stitch did such a wonderful job of incorporating Hawaiian culture and traditions. I'm really hoping the remake will do the same.
Absolutely. The setting and the culture are so integral to the story of Lilo and Stitch. It's not just a backdrop. It's part of the characters' identities, their relationships. The remake really has an opportunity to delve even deeper into those cultural elements and showcase the beauty and the richness of Hawaiian tradition.
Yeah, and it's not just about showcasing it either, is it? It's about representing it authentically, respectfully. They need to make sure they have Hawaiian voices involved in the production.
Yeah.
Both in front of and behind the camera, to make sure that the culture is portrayed accurately and sensitively.
100%. Yeah, it's crucial that they approach this part of the film with a lot of care and sensitivity. And this whole conversation about cultural representation, it brings up a broader point, I think, about the impact of these live-action remakes in general. They have this potential to introduce a whole new generation to these stories, right? But they also have a responsibility to represent those stories in a way that's inclusive and reflective of our changing world.
I completely agree. These remakes aren't just about nostalgia. They're about reimagining these stories for a new audience and making sure that they resonate in a meaningful way. And I think that's what makes this whole trend so fascinating. It's not just about recreating the past. It's about finding new ways to connect with these stories and these characters that have endured for so long.
Yeah, it's this fascinating balancing act, isn't it? Honoring the past, but also looking towards the future. And I think that's what makes the Lilo and Stitch remake so intriguing. It has the potential to be both a nostalgic trip down memory lane, but also, a bold reimagining of a beloved classic.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the challenges and the opportunities of adapting Lilo and Stitch to live action, from the visual style and the music to the cultural representation and that delicate balance of humor and heart. It's clear that this remake has a lot to live up to, but it also has the potential to be something truly special.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's gonna be fascinating to see how it all comes together on the big screen, and thinking about all the different elements that need to come together to make this remake work, to make it a success. It really makes you appreciate the artistry and the skill that goes into filmmaking, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
It's so easy to take it for granted when we're just watching a film, but there are so many talented people working behind the scenes to bring these stories to life. From the writers and directors to the actors, the animators, the composers, everyone in between. I mean, it's a true collaborative effort.
And I think that's what makes cinema so magical. It's the culmination of so many different talents, different perspectives, all coming together to create something that can transport us to another world, make us laugh, make us cry, and ultimately, make us feel something.
That's beautifully said, and I think that sets a perfect note to end on. We've delved deep into the world of Lilo and Stitch, explored the challenges and possibilities of the live-action remake, and even touched on the broader impact of these reimagined classics. It's been a fascinating journey, and I'm excited to see where this story takes us next.
Me too. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep. Aloha.
It's funny, all this talk about live-action remakes, it's got me thinking, what if Lilo and Stitch is just the beginning? Like, what other animated classics could get this live-action treatment? And more importantly, would they even work?
Oh man, the possibilities are endless, and some are definitely more intriguing than others. I mean, imagine the visual spectacle of a live-action Atlantis, the Lost Empire. With the kind of special effects we have today, that underwater world, the ancient technology. It could be absolutely breathtaking.
Oh, right. Yeah, that one's practically begging for a live-action adaptation. But what about something more on the comedic side, like The Emperor's New Groove? Could they capture that same kind of manic energy, those perfectly timed gags, in live action? I'm not so sure. But I would be curious to see them try.
Yeah, that's the thing with these remakes. It's always a gamble, right? Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it really pays off, and other times, not so much. I mean, remember the live action Dumbo? It tried to add this whole emotional subplot, but it didn't quite capture the magic of the original.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Maybe some stories are just better left untouched, or maybe they just need the right approach.
Yeah.
What about Treasure Planet? I mean, space pirates, a talking map, a shape-shifting villain. That could be pretty wild in live action, don't you think?
Absolutely, yeah. That one it has adventure written all over it, but it would definitely require a director with a real vision, someone who could balance that swashbuckling action with the heart of the story, that father-son dynamic. It wouldn't be easy to pull off.
That's what makes me a little nervous about the Lilo and Stitch remake, I think. They can't just throw a bunch of money at special effects and call it a day. They need to understand what made the original so special. That unique blend of humor, heart, and Hawaiian culture.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the real challenge for any live action adaptation, I think. It's not just about recreating the visuals, it's about capturing the essence of the story, right? The themes that really resonated with audiences. And sometimes that's just something that can't be translated directly to a different medium.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into the world of Lilo and Stitch, I guess the biggest question is what do you hope to see from this live action remake? What would make it a success in your eyes?
For me, it really comes down to the heart. If they can capture that same sense of ohana, that deep connection between Lilo and Stitch, even with a CGI alien, I think they'll have achieved something special. The visuals, the music, all of that's important, sure, but without that emotional core, it's just an empty shell.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It really is all about the heart, the soul of the story, and if the filmmakers can tap into that, who knows? Maybe this live-action Lilo and Stitch will surprise us all and become a classic in its own right. Only time will tell, I guess. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and as always, keep diving deep.
Aloha.